Everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to this session. I hope my audio is okay. Okay, so without wasting any further time, we'll begin. Welcome to this React Masterclass. The idea of this class is that I'm not expecting that you know anything related to React.js. Um, for that matter, if you have some basic knowledge of HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript, that should be good enough. So I'll be giving you introduction kind of a session for this React.js. I mean, it's quite comprehensive as such. I would not even call it an introduction because I'm going to cover a lot of topics today. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to just put it in the chat. All right, so then let's begin. I'm presenting my PPT here. So first, let me introduce myself. So my name is Sridhar Jammalamadaka, and I have over 15 years of experience in IT. And I did MTech from IIIT Bangalore. And I have worked for various companies such as Oracle, Tech Mahindra, Tata Technologies, Society General, and I worked for EHRC, IIIT Bangalore, like that. So different kinds of environments I have worked, and I've got exposure for all that. And for most of my career, I have been a web developer, and I have always been in touch with the front end part of it. So I have been a full stack developer as such. So I hope my experience I'll be able to share with you in the next 2 hours. Okay, so we will begin here, starting with a basic question like what is React.js, right? So the React.js, right? React.js is basically a library. It's not a framework. So people often ask this question, what's the difference between React and AngularJS, right? So these are the two popular JavaScript frameworks for doing web application development. So this is the popular question. So the point is that React is a library and it's built by Facebook. And one of the specialities of it is that it is very lightweight, and it doesn't come with all the features, but some of the features which are not coming along with the React, such features you can get them using the third-party modules, npm modules. So by installing third-party modules, you will be able to get those features which are missing in the React. So overall, React is a very exciting library. And right now, as I'm speaking, it is the number one technology for developing front-end applications. It's like the best. So if you are proficient in React, so you can definitely get a job in React. Or if you're already a professional developer, maybe you're a backend developer, this is definitely a very strong skill that you can show it on your resume for your next switch. Or you may want to become some kind of a freelancer and you want to take up projects, or you want to do some kind of startups. In any case, React is really, really good. Another beautiful point about React is, if you know React, you can also do mobile development by learning React Native. React Native is more or less very similar to the concepts that we are going to learn today. So mobile development also will become very easy for you. Okay. So the setup for React.js, what you will require is you will have to install Node.js, at least version 14 or above. That too, LTS version is recommended. Okay, Node.js is a backend technology for JavaScript, right? Just like how we have Java, how we have PHP, how we have Python running on the server. If JavaScript has to run on the server side of it, that is Node.js. So Node.js is compulsory to be installed. It does not matter whether you are using a Windows laptop or a Linux laptop. That doesn't matter. What matters is you just install this Node.js V14 or above. If you can download V16, well and good, or V14 is also okay. LTS version. LTS means long-term support version. And I strongly recommend that you have this editor called as VS Code. VS Code stands for like the Visual Studio Code. It's a Microsoft free editor, and it's the most popularly used for front-end development these days. Okay, so how do you start a React application? So just directly we'll go to that. Okay, how do you start a React application? So once you have installed Node.js, all you have to do is open your command line. No matter whether you're using Mac or Windows or Linux, go to your terminal, that is command line, and type npx create React app and the app name, right? And the program will start for you. So let's see that now in action. So I'm sharing my screen here. So here is the terminal that I have. So, okay, this is my terminal here. I told you that all we have to do is we have to type npx create React app and say, let's call it my app 1, or let's call it my React app 1. So this is like our first React application. So as simple as that. So hit enter. It's going to take a bit of time. It will take approximately 30 seconds to 1 minute. So what it is basically doing right now is it downloads all the necessary libraries that are required to be bundled along with the React.js application. Okay. So let's wait for this. I'm waiting for this to finish. The first time it takes a little bit of time, it has to download all those packages that are needed for the React. So it takes some time. Okay, let's be patient. And okay, almost done. All right, done. Okay, here it is. So right now I'm inside one folder, and here it says change directory to my React app 1 cd, right? That's the same command in any operating system, is the same thing. So cd my React app 1 and just say npm start. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to say cd my React app 1 So I'm inside the folder there, and here let's just try to see what is there inside this folder. So I see that there is some folder, node modules, package.json, public folder, readme.md, and src folder. All these folders have been automatically created. I don't have to do anything. So all I want to do is I want to see this inside the VS Code. So I have already installed VS Code on my machine. So I will open this project by typing code and saying the current directory code, that is dot, and then press the enter key, and everything will open. Everything will open here, and I can see here the Visual Studio Code has opened, right? And I can see this folder structure here in front of me, and right, this folder structure is right in front of me. This is what it has created, all this stuff. And so this is the Visual Studio Code, if you have not seen this before, and if you're already familiar with that, you already know that how nice this VS Code is, right? So okay, so now in VS Code, some interesting thing is like I can open a new terminal here by clicking on the terminal menu and clicking on the new terminal. So I click on terminal and new terminal, and I can have more than one. I can just click one more. I can have multiple, as many as I want, right? So let's use one. Now I'm inside the My React App 1. So I just want to run this and see how it is. So I just say npm run start. If I type npm run start, what will happen here? It is opening a website on localhost 3000. Here it is. Yeah. So here it is. Okay. In first 10 minutes, we have actually launched a React application just with a couple of commands. That's it. What did we do? npx create React app and my React app 1, and then we just did npm run start. That's it. And here is the React application running for us. And how do I know that this is working? I'll go to VS Code, and here you see the entry point for React.js application is the index.js. This is the entry point, and this entry point is going to the root component, that is the app component. So to app component, I want to just see where it is defined. So I click on alt, and I click on this part on the app. So then it is navigating me to the app.js. So right now I'm inside app.js. It says edit app.js and save to reload. So I'll just type in my name, hello, and save it. And I can see that, everything, the entire application has been compiled here successfully. And I can go to my browser and check if it's working. It says hello Sridhar Jammalamadaka. Right? Cool. Right? So let's begin. This is how it works. So now let's get back to a little bit of more theory about React.js. Yes. Yeah, I'm starting my presentation again. So React.js works on this important fundamental technology called as a virtual DOM. Virtual DOM is a concept that Facebook came up with when they invented or when they created this React. So what does virtual DOM do is it improves the performance of the website. So earlier, when we used to use the frameworks like jQuery or any other front-end JavaScript framework, what used to happen is we used to directly modify the DOM. So you won't know much difference when you're talking about 2-3 elements. But when it comes to thousands of elements, that's when the performance gets a hit, right? So for example, just take facebook.com. If you go to facebook.com and you're browsing your stories on your feed, right? And what are the typical actions that you will be doing? You will be liking some stories, commenting on some of them, right? Sometimes changing your profile picture, right? So you're doing multiple actions, isn't it? So for each and every action, if the entire DOM or the document object model were to reload, it's going to take a lot of time. So that's the reason why Facebook came up with this concept called as virtual DOM, which is a virtual replica of the original document object model. And whatever changes that we make, okay, initially are applied to the virtual DOM and then they are applied to the actual DOM. So this actually improves the performance of application drastically. So this is a very important benefit that we must know. So what are the basic commands that we must know in React? Okay, so the basic commands when we are doing React.js is, one of the things that we have to see is npm install. If I have to install any library inside React.js, I will use npm install and that library name. Okay, this is not in particular with React.js, but any kind of a Node.js project or a JavaScript project which is using the package.json, right, and a dependency manager like npm. So this is normal that we use npm install and the package name that will be installed. And if you want to start that React application, we have just seen npm run start, or you can only type npm start. Run can be optional. So basically npm start is same as npm run start. And when you're ready, when you think that I want to go to production with this project, that's when you will type npm run build. Okay, so that's about basic commands in React. Okay, now let's see. There is something called as components inside React.js. I'll explain to you what components are. I'll share my screen here. Here you can see when you're designing your HTML, the way you design it is in terms of components. So for example, here is your website. Typically, we know a website has something called as header, right? This is called as the header, isn't it? And we have a footer, and we have the main component or body component, or whatever you want to call it. This is like the body. Okay, so let's just call this, for our understanding, main component. So first we have to logically plan the web page that we want to develop, and we have to create a corresponding component for this, and this. For creating that, we have two options. One option is either you can go with what is known as class based component, Another is called as the function based component. Okay. For most part of this course, I'm going to talk about function based components, but for the sake of introduction, I'm going to talk about the class based component as well. Okay, now let's get back to our Visual Studio Code and see here. If you see this app.js, here this function app, this is a function based component. I mean, how do you define, how do you know? Because it started with a function, right? So if it starts with function, that's a function based component. And we decided that we want to have three components. They are, I'll start creating each one by one. So the first one is header component. So the header component JS. So the first thing that I'll have to do is I will type import React from React. Import React from, and I will say class header component sends React dot. This is how you start a component in header component. So now here inside this, we have to define a method called as render okay. Or I tell you, I mean, sometimes it's not on top of our mind, right? So what do we do that time is, one shortcut for that is we can use the control space here and we can put it here, right? And here I'm putting some basic HTML. So there's something very basic. Okay, what is this method render? So render is the method that actually gets rendered finally. Okay, so for example, I want to just say that, hi, this is a header, right? So the final step would be that I have to export this. Export default header. All right, and I just check for compilation errors if there are any compilation problems here. Okay, there's no compilation problem here. And this header component must be used inside app.js, isn't it? So I'll remove all of this inside the div. And how do I get that header? Just type header component.js. All right. So now if I go to the browser and check, I got this is a header. All right. So that is how we created the header component. Similarly, we'll create a footer component now. I click on this, click on new file and say footer component.js. So I said we have to type all that code. So there are some shortcuts and some plugins which can save us some time. So I have installed one plugin here for React. You can also install that. That will save a lot of time. That's called as ES7 React Redux React Native snippets. So how do you install that extension? You go to your Visual Studio. On the left hand side, you see this extensions tab here. Type React. You'll get this extremely popular plugin and install this ES7 React Redux React Native snippets. Okay. Once you do that, all I will do is I will say React class component export RCE. And now if I tab RCE tab, you see everything has got auto-filled. So I don't have to bother about anything now. So the import statement has come, component, React, everything came. Everything is just here, right? So now here, what I will do here is, I'll put a H1 and say this is a footer. And inside the app.js, I'm going to put footer component like this. Okay. So now I go back to my browser and you can see, hi, this is a header, this is a footer. So just exactly like how the way we were trying to plan it, right? We want to have a header and we want to have a footer, right? So, and we want to have a body as well. So for that, so far I have shown you what is a class-based component. Next, I will show you what is called as a function-based component for creating the body component, right? So here I want to have something like body component here, or main component. Okay, so it's showing me an error here. That's natural. That's because I have not yet defined it, isn't it? We have not defined this yet. So what we will do, go to src, click on new file, and say main component.js. And now I will first import the React statement, that is import React from React, and say function main component. Hi, sorry. Where did I lose the connection? I'm sorry. So how long since I lost the connection here? Anybody can help me with the chat? What was the last thing that we were talking? Functional based components. Okay, thank you. So here is, you're able to see the slides that I'm presenting here. You're able to see the slides, right? So inside these slides, you can see here, there is class-based component and function-based component. So function-based component, I will demonstrate it to you again. I think I lost it in between. Okay, I'll demonstrate that function-based component once more. Okay. Yeah. So function-based component is like this, where I have created a function main component, and I'm returning whatever HTML that I want to display, that I am returning inside the return statement, right? And I'm doing export default. That's it. It's just basic, simple syntax difference. That's it. Nothing to worry. So there's no much difference between this and that. This is like, you can see this is class, right? So this is class footer component, whereas this is function based component. That's it. I mean, this syntax is slightly different from the syntax here. Here we have a render method, and inside the function component, we don't have a render method. As simple as that. Okay. So that was about function based component. And let's proceed to the next section. Let's proceed to the next section. Yeah. So components can be nested in React. So typically we don't write everything inside one component, but we break it down into pieces, right? One piece into another piece into another piece, like that, right? So like, let's say that we have the main page, we break it down into pieces, just like how you can see here. There's a component which has a component which has components inside it. So let's say that there's a big page here, there's a header component here, and there's a menu component here. Inside that we keep. So that is how you have to break your components, right? Yeah. So some of you who are having knowledge of JavaScript might be wondering that how is it possible that you are writing HTML within JavaScript, correct? It's not possible to write direct HTML within JavaScript, right? So this is a special language. This is like a kind of an extension of JavaScript, okay, called as JSX. So Facebook people came up with this language called as JSX, which allows JavaScript to be extended. That's why it's called as JSX, JavaScript extension, right? It's similar to HTML, but not HTML as such. So you cannot do everything that you can do in HTML and JSX. There are some limitations and some special way of doing it. Okay. So it allows us to write HTML within React components. That is JSX. And you can write expressions within the curly braces also. Okay. And what are the differences between JSX and HTML is, in HTML, it's not mandatory to have one single parent element. Okay, it's not very strict as such. So you can have multiple, for example, tags here which are not closed by one parent, right? But then in JSX, it's like that XML. How XML works? There must be one root node compulsory, isn't it? So inside that root node, everything will be there. All the XML will be defined. That is compulsory. So similarly, it is like that. It's mandatory to return a single parent element, and all the tags must be closed inside JSX. That is also very much compulsory. In HTML, it's not compulsory. For example, there are tags like BR, breaking line. If you remember, all of you who use HTML, you must be very frequently using BR tag, isn't it? Just to get a new line. So that you don't put any closing tag for BR, isn't it? But then JSX would not allow you. You have to put a closing tag for BR also. Okay, self-closing tag, BR, open it and close it within that tag, right? So, and another thing is, we have something called as a class in HTML code, isn't it? So instead of saying class, we should call it as class name, right? And instead of using the for attribute for the label, you must use the HTML for label attribute. And HTML attributes must be in camel case. Okay. Full uppercase or full lowercase is not allowed. It must be inside camel case. Okay. The next concept is, we will see what is called as conditional rendering. So this is going to be very interesting. Let's see this. Okay. Now let's say inside the main component, we want to add something more than hello, this is the main component. Okay, what I want to do is, I want to wrap this inside a div tag. Put it inside a div tag, right? And remove this semicolon here, like this. Yeah. Hello, this is the main component. And I just want to pass some value from app to here. Okay. That is called as props. Okay. The concept of props. So I will say, maybe something like price equals, and I have to put it inside curly brackets, whatever I want to pass. Price equals 100. Price equals 100. So now how do I print this price inside the main component? Okay, this is called as the props. I can pass as many props as I want, and any type of values also I can pass. Now I want to just print it here. Okay, what do we do? How do we get it? Get it by accessing the props here. Okay, here is the props, right? So now if I want to just show this price, I'll just do h2, say price, and open the brackets and type props dot price. Okay, now go to your browser. Wow, we got that, right? So if I'm going to change inside the app.js from price 100 to 500 and come back, you can see that the price is 500, right? So this is working fine, right? So what I want to do is, if the price is above 100, I want to show that the price is high. If the price is below 100, I want to show a text here that the price is low. Simple, no? So that is, I want to simply put, I want to put an if loop here, right? Typically, you say, oh, that's so simple. Just go, okay, this is, you're saying JavaScript, okay, just do this something like, okay, if price is less than 100, just show something like h3 and say price is low. Else, if price is greater than 100, just print price is high. That's it. What is the difficulty, right? So, but then you see, if I try to do this, it's saying unexpected token. It's not allowing me to do this. So this means that, you know, I cannot directly write if else statement within JSX. This is called JSX, right? So I have to play by the rules that JSX has created for me. So I cannot do it this way, but I have to do it in a slightly different way. Let's see how I can do this, how I can achieve this. So the way I can do it is using ternary operator. First, I have to start with brackets, curly brackets. So anything that you want to put it inside the curly brackets, first step. And here you put these brackets, round brackets, and say price less than 100, and put here question mark. If price is less than 100, then just show this, else show this. Delete this. Okay, it's not price, it's props.price, isn't it? So yeah, so this is called as the ternary operator, right? Ternary operator, we have experience of it in every programming language. Ternary operator is there in C language, is there in Java, it's there in JavaScript, it's there in every programming language. Any programming language is there, ternary operator, right? So using the ternary operator, I can achieve what I want to do, like props.price is less than 100. Yes, question mark. Then render price is low. If it is greater than 100, then render price is high, right? So right now, what is the price that we are passing here? Price is 500. So therefore, what do you expect to see? Price is low or price is high? Price is high, right? So let's see what happens. It says price is high. So same thing, I go to app.js and I'll make it 80 and save it now. You can see the price is low. Okay, so amazing. So it's working so well. If I make it 50, this price is low. Very good. If I make it 200, price is high, right? So it's working perfectly fine, right? So this is called, we have seen two concepts at the same time. One concept is the props. Okay, that is, I can pass something from the parent component. I can pass any information to the child component. That is called as the props. And the second concept that we saw is conditional rendering, means how to render conditionally based on certain thing. Okay, so I will stop sharing and go back to the PPT. Right. Yeah. I'm going to share my PPT once more. So we saw how to use the ternary operator, right? So there is another thing called as the short circuit operator. Short circuit operator is something like, if something is true, then and ampersand, right? Then show this. So short circuit is operator is useful when you just want to do, if there's nothing, like if you don't have an else case, that's when short circuit operator is useful. Okay, so now coming to the next important point, how to render a list in React. So this is like very, very important point. So often in your front-end application, you will get data from the API, and this API will have an array of items, isn't it? It's an array of objects or array of items, elements will be there. So these elements, you want to render them. That's simple. So for example, just see the example on the slides here. It says numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you want to list, I mean, you want to show them as a uh, as a unordered list or an ordered list. So that is the li list item, right? To do that, we take use of this method called as the map method of JavaScript. So just you note the syntax, numbers dot map of number, and then print that. Okay, so we will try this out now. I'll just try this out. So what I want to do is, here let us say that I have some numbers with me. Constant array equals 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This array, I want to print it as a list. So all I have to do is, I'll say array dot map item such that list item and item. This is the syntax, and I have to wrap it around UL. It sounds a little bit difficult, or it looks difficult, but it is actually not. I mean, once you get hold of one example, creating another one is just a matter of copy paste job. That's it. It's as simple as that. Okay. So now let's see what I want to do here is, I want to have an unordered list that is bullets, right? HTML bullets. And inside that, I want to list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. Now, if I go here, you see I have bullets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. So this is what we were talking about. Okay, so this is also possible in the case of array of objects also. Okay, so typically we have an array of objects, correct? So array of objects, where you will have an array and each of them is an object. For example, it has let's say it's like list of user data, right? So for example, name is there here. We have name. So and have city, right? and okay, that density. Right? For example, I have this array of objects here. I want to print that, right? So how do you print that? Let's say I want to put it inside a div, and I will say, just observe carefully. It's quite simple, not at all difficult. Huh? Array of objects dot map item such that I want to wrap it inside div and put the item dot city and item dot name. There are two things here, isn't it? So therefore it should be city is this, and or rather name of the person is this, and city is city, like that, right? Now if you come here, you can see, these are getting printed properly, right? It's as simple as that. Just take a look at the code again. It's just very simple. Array of objects is actually array of objects, and then I'm just doing a map and just printing that items within that. As simple as that. That's it, right? So let's go to the next concept. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. You can put it on the chat, or if you want to even enable your voice also, you can ask for permission. Then I can show you that. Yeah, so far we are going very good. So stay with me, and I'll complete this session, and you'll have a full overview of React. And you'll trust me, you'll have much better time working on React once you do this session. That was about React rendering, right? So we have something called as lifecycle methods in React. Lifecycle methods, we all know that, in software engineering, in any framework that you take, we want the initialization method, and we want the destruction method to be able to call some initialization code inside the setup method, or we want to call some kind of closing kind of things inside the teardown method. So everywhere inside the test cases, inside any kind of struts or servlet or JSP, everywhere we always, in any kind of framework, we look for these kind of hooks called as the lifecycle methods, right? Like, for example, we have used the render method, if you remember, like in the class component. When I wrote the class component first time, I wrote a class component and I wrote a render function. Inside the render function, where I was returning the JSX that needs to be printed. So render is a lifecycle method in React, which is called every time the component state is updated, right? Similarly, component did mount and component will unmount. The name is very, very intuitive. I mean, we can just guess what it is. So component did mount is that lifecycle method where you will put that part of your code which you want to do at the beginning. That is like, once the component is loaded first time, only once you want to perform that. That is component did mount. That is when the component is about to unmount, when you're closing that, or maybe you're moving away from that page to another page. That time we need component will unmount. Okay. So the same thing can be achieved using what is called as a React hook inside the functional component, because you cannot have lifecycle methods inside the functional components. That is function component. I told you that there are two ways of creating components. What are they? Function component, class-based component, and functional component. So now I'm saying lifecycle methods are possible within the class-based component. But if you still want to use lifecycle kind of methods inside the functional components, that time you should go for the what is called as React hooks. Okay, I will demonstrate to you both the concepts. So first we will see the lifecycle methods, and then we will see the React hooks. Particularly, we will see the hook called as use effect, and next we will see what is the use state also. Okay, let's start with the lifecycle methods. Okay, here we are. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to use this method called as lifecycle method called as component id component id sorry, this is function component, right? So you can't do it inside this. We'll have to look for a function component. We'll go to header component. Yeah, we'll go here. Fine. Here we want to write some initialization code. So whenever the header is just about to get ready, that's the initialization code. That is component did mount. So component did mount, and inside here you can put an alert statement and say header is now loaded. So alert. So whenever this lifecycle method is being called, I will see one alert in the browser saying header is now loaded, right? And this should happen only once, not more than once, correct? So let's just see what happens. It just says header is now loaded, right? So similarly, we can have something called as component will unmount, and here inside this I can put the cleanup code. I'll say like header is now unmounted. It's difficult for me to demonstrate that to you right now, but basically you can understand that whenever this will be like, you know, this header component will be closing, at that time this will be called. Okay, so alert is becoming very, very disturbing. So just let's make it console.log so that we can just see it inside the console. Okay, so if I put console log, whatever console logs I put it, I will be able to see it here, right? It says header is loaded, header is now unmounted, header is now loaded, right? So when I'm clicking refresh, see, if I click on refresh or reload, that time I'm seeing header is loaded, header is now unmounted. So one error that we are seeing here, each child in a list should have a unique key property. I'll tell you what is it about. So inside the main component, whenever you have a list, so be sure to give something called as the key. I'll just tell you what is a key item and index. This is the index. Take the index and say key equals index. Now let's see if it will stop complaining. Still complaining because there is one more here. So for this item comma index is like 0 1 2 3 0 based thing. So here if I can just put a key here and put an index here, then it should stop complaining. On, right? So coming back to the lifecycle component. So this is for the initialization. This is for the kind of the exit kind of a code. Okay, the same thing that you can achieve But inside your function components, right, how do you do it with the function component, right? The function component, how do you achieve that is using what is called as a use effect hook. Okay, let's try to see that. What is the use effect hook? So for importing that, I have to type, first import it here, use effect, and inside the function component, I will type here use effect, and I will pass anonymous function here. I'll pass an anonymous function here. And inside this use effect, I will say console.log main component is loaded. But then this will be called too many number of times. You see, use effect, you see what happens right now. The main component is loaded. And every time some other changes happens, for example, let us say that I have a button here. Maybe I'll just add a button here and say, click me, right? And so whenever I click on this button, I have to define a handler here. So I'll say button clicked. I'll define a handler within the function. Okay. I will just put a console.log here and say button click. So you can see that I have a button here called click me. If I click, it says button clicked, right? As simple as that. Just like how we do it in JavaScript and HTML, correct? So this is like this is called as an event handler. And this is called as an event. This is very much similar to what you do it inside HTML. In HTML also, you have something called as the events and event handlers. But there is a difference. The difference between the HTML and JSX here is inside React, when you're putting, this is in camel case. Can you see? This is on capital C, right? But whereas inside HTML, it will be all small case. On click will be all small case letters, right? So that's how it basically works. Okay, so use effect, we were talking about this use effect. I want this to be running only once. I don't want it to be loading multiple times. Then all I have to do is I have to put a dependency array here and pass nothing to it. If I put a dependency array and pass nothing to it, then I can be very sure that the main component will be not called more than once. More than what is not needed, it will be not called. So its main component is loaded. Okay, it's like a one time. So whenever, for example, if you want to make a REST API call, and load something within the main component, that time we will use that this kind of a concept. Okay, so and we just saw what is called as this button clicked, that is the events also, right? So now let's proceed and look at state and props in a more clearer way. Okay, let me go back to my presentation. Okay, I hope you're following along with me, but no worries. So I from last half an hour, I'm going to keep it for questions. So I'll keep it open for questions and I'll take your questions. Even now, if you have some questions, you can interrupt me, no problem. Okay, so let's begin. Yeah. So we saw how we can use effect is a replacement for component did update, component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount. So we can use effect. So there are some rules for hooks, right? That you should not use a hook within a loop or condition or nested functions. And hooks must be called only from React function component. You cannot call hooks within a regular JavaScript function. As simple as that. And we saw what are props. Props are those, if you want to pass values from the parent component to the child component, then you use the props. And these props can be used both in function components and class components. Okay, you can use them. And now we're going to talk about very interesting and important concept called as state. What is state? So without state, React cannot be able to store anything at all. Okay, see here we see the state is a built-in React object that is used to contain data or information about the component. So if you want the component to store some data, then you must use state. So then you can say, oh, that's so easy. Why are you saying that? I don't need state. I will simply use JavaScript global variable. Then it will automatically stay. No, that's not going to work like that. Because one thing that you have to understand is inside React, everything is a React component. And these components are getting rendered by the React framework using the virtual DOM framework. And whenever there is a prop change that happens in the parent, the render method gets called and the component gets rendered. So the data that you're storing inside the global variable or any kind of a variable, that scope will be lost. So you should never trust any kind, you should never store any data in this kind of global variables, local variables, and always use the concept of state if you want to keep something inside that for that component. Okay, so for that purpose we have to use the hook called as use state in the function components. And whereas as far as the class component is concerned, you must use this dot set state. Okay, so let's see that now. Let's see what is the state. Okay, how to use the state. So let me share my screen. Yeah, so first we will talk about the class component. So here we have a clean class component, and inside the footer, okay, I want to have some state. For that, the way to do it is first define a constructor, and the first line of the constructor must call super, like in any object oriented programming language. And then you say this dot state equals, and you initialize your state here. Initialize your state here, which says this dot state. Okay, inside the footer, what do you have typically? You will have copyright information, no? So we will say copyright, generally typically it will be like this: 2022 copyright, all rights reserved. Correct? So this year, right, I want to put it as the state. So how do you do that? So I'll say this dot year. So this is a JSON object and put it 2022. So instead of showing 2022 like this, I will call it from the state. How do I show it from the state? This dot state dot year. Okay, so this dot state dot year, and year I have initialized as 2022. Now if you go back here and just come here and see, it says 2022 all rights reserved, right? So let's say I want to change this state. Let's say if I want to like have two options, either 2022 or 2023. So for that, what I can do here is I will have to see one thing. I'll demonstrate you here. Every JSX must be having one root element. I mean, I cannot just write like this. This is not a valid JSX here. See, I want to write a button here, and 2023 and 2022, two options I want to give. But you can see everything is being shown in red. I mean, it's showing me some kind of warning saying not allowed, not allowed. What is not allowed? Okay, it's not allowed because JSX expression must have one parent element. So that means I must wrap it with some parent element. So this is called as an empty fragment. So this is like an empty, right? So this is actually not a component. So it's like an empty fragment. And here I can put it here. So one is 2022, one is 2023. I will say on click. What do we want to do on click? I want to say this dot set state of year, make it 2022. So in case I click on the 2022 button, this state year must be changed to 2022. If I click 2023, it should be simply made into 2023, right? Simple as that. I am saying this dot set state, then I can change the year from 2022 to 2023. If I click on 22, it comes 22, 23, it comes as 23. So the same thing, if I want to do it inside a function component, I have a state here. So how do you use a state within function component? Is using a hook. So how do you define a hook? So we will say, let's have a visibility flag, constant visible set visible equals use state. Use state is a, see, it got imported here automatically. Use state of false. So use state is a hook which accepts the default value of the state and returns the value and the setter for that value as in a destructured kind of a format. So now, based on whether this is visible or not visible, we will show a certain sentence here. Okay. So I'll just put here and put h4 and say, this is secret information. The secret information, and this should be visible only if the visible flag is there, right? That we define, then only it should be visible. So put and ampersand and put it like this, right? So this is the short circuit operator that I said I will demonstrate, right? So visible, if visible is false, this is secret information won't be shown. So this is secret information is not being shown. If the visible is true, if I change it here as true, default value is true, then this is secret information is shown, right? So here I have a button here which says click me. Then what I will do, toggle secret. I'll say toggle secret. So if I click on this, this should hide, right? And if I click on it, it should again unhide itself, right? So what I will do for that, so inside the button clicked, I will say set visible of not of visible. Means the opposite of visible. Well, if visible is true, it will become false. If visible is false, it will become true. I'm using the negation operator here, right? So as simple as that. So like this, if I click on this, it's gone. If I click on this, it's gone. So this is how we can use state. Okay. Now let's go to the next concept here. I'll start the presentation, and yeah, that's how we saw the state. Now, natural difference, that question that comes to our mind is, now you said that there is state, there is props. What is the difference between state and props, right? State is used to store data that have to be rendered to the view. Okay. And props is used to pass data from parent to the child component. But more or less, they're used for rendering the values of the component. That means inside any UI component, you want to show out some things that you want to do it with the help of either state or props. Okay. But the difference is props are immutable or read only. They can be changed only by the parent element. You cannot change props, right? But state can be changed by the component, and state has nothing to do with the parent component. There's nothing like a hierarchy or nesting here inside the state, right? And React component re-renders upon change in state or props. It basically does it. And state can be changed only within the component. State cannot be changed outside the component. State belongs to the component. Nobody else can own the state, whereas props belong to the parent. That's the interesting, important difference that we have to see. Right now, we will see forms. That's like the most important point of front end framework, isn't it? So if there is any front end framework, all we are interested in is forms. We want to fill up forms and save the forms, right? This is what a typical application is all about, is it not? So in the forms, we have something called as the controlled inputs and the uncontrolled inputs, right? So what is the difference is, controlled inputs have a single source of truth, right? They are connected with the state. So what we do is, let us say that there is a text input asking for a username and password. Now let us design a login form, simple login form, asking username, password, submit button. Now when I click on the submit button, I must get the username and password. That's all. This is a simple application that I want to do. So for that, how we can do? So one thing is, you can two options. You can use the control input or uncontrolled input. So control input is, you will tie this text box input value to a state variable. Whereas in uncontrolled input, there's no connection with the state variable. It's like you will use a hook called as useRef. Okay, I'll show that to you right now. So this is the very important thing. Just pay attention here. Very, very important. I'm going to show it to you right now. And before I demonstrate, I want to tell you about this, that there are two libraries which are very popular in React forms. One is called as the React hook forms, and one is called as a Formic, right? One is based on, Formic is based on control inputs, whereas React hook forms is based on uncontrolled inputs. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you this, how to design a form. Now let's create a login form. I want to create a login form. So for that, I'll say file new, I'll say login.js. And I want to create a function based component. So I will say RFE. So here is a function based login component. And how do you design a login component? So what typically does it have? It needs to have a username and password, right? So first thing is, I will create the username. So username is an input, type equals text, and name equals username, right? And I can have a label for this, label for name, HTML for, I'm sorry, HTML for username, and label will be username. The same thing, I'll just copy this whole thing, paste it below, and now I'm going to say password, and I will have one submit button here. Right? So this login form, I want to show it right below the main component. So I have to come here and just type here login form. It's not being shown here. Why? Because I have not exported it, did I? Yeah, here it is, login. I've exported it, export default login. So come back here, just look for it. Yeah, got it. So we'll put it above the main component. Okay. Now go here and see if it is appearing. Okay, wonderful. We're getting the username, password. So if I type my name here, username and my password, oh, why is it showing here? So that means I've something wrong here. What did we do? We have to make this type as password. Okay. Now this is looking like a password. So if I click on this login, I must be able to see this value and this value, right? So that's what we want to do. Unless I see at the moment, these two inputs have no connection with React at all. I mean, how does React know? React is a framework, virtual DOM, right? It has no connection with this. I mean, it is not able to pick up these values from here, right? Not getting anything here, right? So first thing that I have to do is I have to connect it. So what I will do, let's do it in a controlled, two ways I'll show it. One is in the controlled inputs and the uncontrolled inputs. Both I will show you, okay? For the controlled inputs way, I need to define state variables. How do you define state variables? Right? I told you that you have to define it like this: username, set username, and say equals use state hook. Am I right? Use state hook. Right? By default, just don't define anything inside it. Blank and constant password, set password equals use state. Right? Yeah. So this is about having the state. Now I have to tie this state with this. I have to tie this username with this. How do I tie it? So I'll just say value is equal to username. And I'll put here value equals password. But then, okay, so far it's good. But now it's not letting me. Okay, let me just see what's going on. Okay, I have put value is equal to username, and here I have put value is equal to password. So far, okay. Now just refresh this and check. Yeah. So I'm typing here and typing here. But somehow we have to set this inside the username. Who is going to do that? So for that, what we will do is I will say on change. On change, I will say text changed handler. We'll write a handler now for this text change handler function, text change handler, and event and set dot set username of event.target.value. That's it. Or instead of saying, we'll say username changed handler. So same thing I will do for password changed handler. Okay. So here I'll say it as username changed handler on change value is equal to password changed handler. Right? So now if you come here, if I type here, and how do I know? Okay, something has gone wrong. What is happening? If I'm typing here inside the password, the username is getting changed. So that means something has gone wrong here. So what is gone wrong? Inside the password change handler, I'm saying set username. So that's why it must be set password. Okay. So now Now it's fine, right? Now it's fine. So if I click on login, I want to see both of these values here printed inside the console.log. How do I see that? So for that, what I will do, upon click of the button, right, login button, on click, right, button clicked, and function button clicked. I'll say console.log template backtick syntax and say username is username, that's the state dollar, and password is dollar password, right? Let's try this out now. So I'm putting my username and my password, and sorry, and clicking on login. So username is here, password is here. If I put password 123 and click on login, it says password 123. I put Sridhar J2 here, it's coming here. So that's how you do it in the controlled form. Now I'm going to show the same thing using an uncontrolled form. So uncontrolled form, this part will be the same from here to here. So I'll take this part and go here and type login uncontrolled.js and say RFE, RFCE, RFCE, login uncontrolled, and I'll paste this. And here, this value and on change should be removed. Here, here, and here. Button clicked is necessary. We require button clicked. So we go to, I'm going to write function button clicked, right? And inside the function button clicked, what I will do here is I have to get the values now. How do I get these values? Let's see. This login uncontrolled, will put it inside the app.js above the control login. Okay, so we'll put it here and close it like this. So I'll have two login forms. This is like one and another two. How do you distinguish? So for distinguishing them, what I will do here, I'll put a h1 here and say uncontrolled inputs login, I'll put it as controlled inputs. Now it's so clear to me like what is what, right? So now we are working on the uncontrolled forms. So here we have to use something called as the useref. We have something called as the useref hook. Okay, so we'll say constant user name ref equals useref. Same thing. And this username ref, I will put it for this guy here. Here, let's put ref equals username ref. Okay, and constant password ref equals useref, and I will take this and put it here, password ref. Okay, now inside the button clicked, how are you going to get these values, right? Console.log username is dollar username ref dot current dot, that's it, only dot current, that's it, and password is password ref dot current. Okay, now let's just try this out. I put my username here, Sridhar A, password 123, click on login. Okay, It's showing me in an object form. I want to see the value of it. So current dot value and put dot value. Okay. Let's try this out. Click on it. Okay, I'm getting it. Password 1234. Got it. Right? Change this. Change this. Got it. That is about uncontrolled inputs. Okay. So now let's proceed to the next one. The final one. How to do styling in React.js. Once we do this, our training will come to a complete, masterclass will come to a complete, and then we'll have the question and answer session. Yes. So I'm going to continue my presentation. So here we're talking about how to style React components. So far we have done everything in a very raw way and everything is looking like basic HTML. So we want to style our HTML, right? So how to do that? As simple as this, that you can create a styling file, CSS file, and you can import it using import syntax, import./app.css, right? And we can use inline styling also, and you can use popular styling libraries such as Bootstrap, React Bootstrap, Material UI, all this kind of styling you can do. You can even use syntactically awesome styling sheets, etc. Also, that's possible. So let's just see that now. I'll just show it to you. So here, with respect to the login form, let's do some kind of styling. So what I want to do is I will create a new file and say login.css. And this login.css, I will import it here. Import./login.css, right? And it's compiling and it's fine. Go to login.css, and we know that we have an input here of type text. So if we have input of type text, what we want to do, we want to make it like, let's say, some kind of nice styling here, and for input password as well. So we can have some styling here, and we'll see how it looks now. Okay, doesn't look like it kind of applied this. Okay, start with something simple. Okay, let's go back to here, login.css. Okay, are we referencing it properly? Yes, we are. Where are we missing? Input type is equal to text, name's there. Okay, we'll try to give it a class name. So I told you that we should give it as class is not allowed, but you can put class name here, right? Class name. So I'll give it as class name. I will give it as username. And now try again with login.css. Instead of this input.text, input text, I will just put it as dot username. See, okay. Yeah, it is working here. You can see we've got a very big username here. Yeah, like that. Okay, so similarly here, what I will do here is, I think this styling was wrong. Basically, it was supposed to have been type is equal to password. It should have been like this, I think. Yeah, this is working now. So yeah, so you see the styling is working absolutely fine. And with respect to here, this is not a input submit, it's actually a button. So if I just make it a button and see what happens, even this has come and everything is working fine, right? So this is how you do styling in React.js. Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to cover. And maybe I will just do a quick recap of whatever we did. That will be very useful, right? I'll do a quick roundup of what all we have learned today. That will be a very solid foundation for all of us. So let me just do a roundup of what we have done, and then we will go to the question and answer session. Okay. So let's come to the first slide and let's review what all we have learned today in just 1.5 hours. So yeah, so we started with my introduction, and I told you that I am into web development from 15 years, and I'm doing this master class to distribute the knowledge of React for all of you. And I'm very happy to connect with you. And React.js is basically a JavaScript library built by Facebook. And for setting up first React, what you require is you require Node.js to be installed on your computer, correct? You need to install Node.js on your computer. And the first step that you will do is you will say npx create React app and your app name. That's the first step. And then we spoke about what is virtual DOM and how it makes React very fast in comparison with others. And we saw how we can do npm install for installing new modules and npm start for starting a new React application, npm build for creating a production ready build. We saw the differences between class-based components and function-based components. And I told you that you can nest components, one component inside another, etc. And we saw how JSX is similar to HTML. JSX allows us to write HTML within JavaScript. The full form of JSX is JavaScript extended, and it makes our React really, really useful and very easy to code, right? And we saw that JSX versus HTML, JSX must have a top level tag. You can also have an empty tag, I showed you, right? So class cannot be class, it must be class name. And we saw conditional rendering. You cannot put an if else statement here, but you can use a ternary operator or a short circuit operator. And you see how to render a list in React is a very, very common requirement. And I demonstrated to you how to do it using the dot map method. And the lifecycle methods that we have seen: component did mount, component will unmount, and render, right? And we saw what are React hooks. And I shown you multiple hooks. Like we saw what is use state hook, we saw the use effect hook, we saw the use ref hook also, right? And we saw what are the rules of hooks and what are props, how props can be used for passing information from parent to child, and what is state inside React, and what's the differences between them. That state belongs only to the component, and component can change it, whereas props belong to the component for sure, but only parent can change it. They are read only. And we saw the difference between how to build a form using controlled inputs and another form using uncontrolled inputs. We saw both, right? So we saw forms, and we saw how to do styling. So one thing that I would like to say is that we are hiring for people, and we are hiring for people in various technologies like React Native and Angular and React programming. So if you're interested in applying for this job, you can get in touch with us. So that's what, but you can get in touch with, I have your email address with me, and I will send out an email to you after this, asking that if you want to apply, you have to share, you can share your resume to me. Then we will consider your profile for the job. So for our latest requirements. So that's about it. And yes, so if you have any questions, we can take up questions for the next 15 minutes. So anybody wants to ask me any questions? Any questions? You can raise your hand, or You can start asking your question in the chat. You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and even talk. I'll be happy to help. Do you have any questions or do you have any comments? How was the webinar? Was it useful? Yes, the recording is available, Prashant. You will get the recording. I think automatically you're going to get it. If you don't get it, I'll make sure that you'll get it. Okay, you'll get the recording for a limited period. I allow the recording to be with you. Yes, Prashant. Yes. Any other questions? Any other comments? So yes, thank you, Prashant. So one more time, I would like to tell that yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, Prashant. So one more time, I would like to tell you that we have multiple requirements for multiple projects here. Thank you, Shravani. We have multiple requirements, and I'm going to send out an email to you asking for your resume. And if you're interested in applying for that, we can discuss. I'll discuss with each of you. Okay? So that's the thing. Okay. I think there are no more questions. Yes. Hi, Jyotika. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Yes. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to me on my personal email address that I'm going to put it here. You can reach out to me here. I'm just putting it here. Yeah, that is, oh, sorry. Yeah, this is the one. I'm sorry. Yeah. Ignore the previous message. Yeah. Yeah, this one. Correct. Yeah. So here we have a question from Ambati Indravardhan. Yes. What is the level of knowledge on React we should have to apply for the job? See, the thing is, like, obviously, for working in a job, you need to have some working knowledge on it. But the reason why I said I will take people is, see, if I like the profile, if I like your profile, you may not be knowing React JS as such. That's okay also for me, because I am ready to conduct more training sessions and you can come up to speed. So if you are in touch with me, and I will be conducting some more sessions, and you can learn on yourself and you can come up to speed, and you can start working on that. So it's all about how fast you can learn. So I look at aptitude more importantly than technology, because anybody can pick up technologies, right? So because every day technologies are changing, and it's just a matter of spending a week or two to get started on the technology. So I'm okay with that kind of beginner level knowledge also. It's okay for me. But what I look at is like your technical aptitude or your work experience, your previous experience kind of things. Or if you have no experience at all, I will look at your aptitude, how you are good at solving problems, like that. So if I like that, so then I'll definitely recommend you for the job. So you can always give it a try. Don't worry about the skill level. Okay. I hope I answered your question, Indravardhan. Okay, then. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again sometime when I'm doing the next session. Thank you very much. Until then, bye. We'll sign off.